We have put together this series, and I'm just going to introduce Rory and our program on experimentation before we go to the main event. Rory is, of course, the Research on Research Institute, 18 core partners, funder partners shown there on the right, 10 co-design projects covering everything from narrative CVs to the use of AI in research to funder evaluation of the portfolio of projects they fund. And one of those 10 co-design projects is AFIRE, the Acceleration for Innovation and Research Funding Experimentation, with our wonderful project partners there on the right. And what we in AFIRE exist to do is increase awareness and motivation of the importance of experimentation and stronger and more rigorous evidence evaluation in the funding system, to work with funders to build capacity, to carry out more rigorous evaluation and run experiments, and ideally to work with funders to run those experiments. So it's kind of three-part program. We're here at the forum, the on-ramp, all funders are welcome. We have a program of bespoke support to work with our partners to build capacity to run experiments, and we also have particular experiments that we're running. The forum has been, this is the 5th talk. You can catch up on the recordings on the website. There's a QR code with the link there. Thank you to our previous speakers, particularly any of those who are here today. And we have 3 more talks in the spring series. And we've just added Janol Hasselberg, who will be talking about two-stage versus continuous application processing. We booked him in for the 21st of May. So please do register to receive notifications. Here's the program of activities. We're here at the forum at the top. We are slightly delayed in our capacity building programs called Sprint, but the next one, which is we've shifted the timeline because we want to get the syllabus for this right, will be on AI in reviewer selection. And we are also working on 2 core experiments, one on partial randomization and one on distributed peer review with our partners at the Volkswagen Foundation. And we hope to announce results of these and discuss the next phase of experimentation at the Meta Science Conference in London in the summer. Please do join us. So we have 3 core experiments, 5 core experiments that we think are ready for uptake. And if you are interested in any of the following: distributed peer review, partial randomization, AI in reviewer selection, the use of anonymization in proposal evaluation, or an experiment on desk review, please do get in touch. But that is enough from me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to our speaker today, Muge Shimshek, who will be talking about evaluation with a field experiment run in partnership with the NWO. Please do some notices. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and say who you are and where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to stop the recording after the talk for the discussion. And the discussion will be held under the Chatham House rule, which is that you're free to repeat what you hear, but not to attribute who you heard it from. So we hope to encourage a kind of discussion among all of our guests, a free discussion among all of our guests about the issues raised. So, does our speaker want to share her slides?
Yes, I'm just trying. Oh. Try again.
And I've understood you're going to speak for about 25 minutes, and I will be monitoring the chat, so I'll be able, if there are any clarification questions, please do interject, and I can speak them out. Otherwise, we look forward to the talk.
Yeah, I start. You're seeing the screen, right?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay.
We're good.
Great. Go. Hi everyone, I'm Miki Şimşek, as Tom said, and today I will walk you through the study conducted by me, Matthijs Stefan, and Arnoud van der Rijt, which has been quite recently published in the journal Scientometrics. And in this study, we make use of an experiment that Dutch Research Council, NWO, conducted, and we examine whether proposals affect the ranking of applications in an early career grant competition. So the credit for the experiment should go to NWO, and we basically analyze the data that we received from NWO. I'll go into detail, but before that, I would like to give you some background information on the Dutch Research Council and also the grant competition in question. So Dutch Research Council is one of the main science funding bodies in the Netherlands. They receive government money from Ministry of Education, Culture and Science and all other ministries actually, and they distribute this money by means of competition to the universities and research institutes. And per year, the whole investment reaches to 1 billion euros. And NWO also makes quite a bit of focus on the curiosity-driven research, societal challenges, and research infrastructure. So these are the topics they really want to award, and they want to develop thriving in research. And there are various funding lines of NWO, like open competition, talent program. These are more individual grants, while the rest is more for the partnerships between researchers and private or public institutes, for example. And the experiment that we have, from which we use the data, concerns the talent program of NWO and specifically the VD grant competition. This is an individual grant, so it's basically given to individual researchers by means of competition. And you can say the target group is early or mid-career researchers, depending on how you define the career. But this is mostly after, like for a researcher to be considered for this competition, they should have finished their PhD like 7 years before the competition. And the idea is again to really support curiosity-driven, innovative research. And also this is to kind of help researchers to build their own research line and expand their research group. The grant is, if you check website of NWO today, it is 850,000 euros, but when the experiment was conducted, this was 50,000 euros less of the inflation. And focus of the study is also the video grant competition, but it concerns only the pre-selection process. So let me first walk you through the assessment procedure, at least how it was in 2018 and 19, and then I'll tell you how the experiment was kind of designed. So there are applications, right, submitted by the researchers, and the application back then consisted of a CV and a proposal. Proposal is basically the full research proposal, including also some parts on knowledge utilization of this, the societal impact basically of a research proposal, and a CV. And if there are many applications, to be specific, if the number of applications exceed 4 times the available grants, there is something called a pre-selection procedure. And this procedure is conducted by NWO, and the applications are not sent to external referees, but they are basically screened to have a pre-selection so that the number of applications just decrease for the other steps. And if I remember correctly, from what I remember, at least our discussions with the NWO, that this was quite a bit, this was not a rare occasion because there were many applications each year. And then after the pre-selection, applications are sent to external referees, and external referees give some feedback, some points, some scores to the applications, and the applicants are given chance to respond to these points, and the points or the responses of the applicants as well as the referee feedback are then submitted to selection committee, and the selection committee selects candidates for interviews, and after these interviews, selection committee gives some kind of final recommendations for funding decisions to the domain board, And the domain board is the board which gives the final decision on who gets to get the grant. And so as you can see, there are quite a bit of review stages. Of course, it's not very, I mean, it is quite common for many kind of competitions. But NVO back then thought, okay, we have, it's a lot of, burden on the reviewers. And how do we kind of make this a bit more efficient? And then the idea was that instead of presenting CV and proposal in the pre-selection stage, giving only the CV and a bit of a summary of a proposal would make a kind of a substantial impact. So the question is whether NVO could kind of facilitate this process at the pre-selection stage, so that it's a bit less on the reviewers, but also on the applicants, because applicants also spend a lot of time on writing, working on these proposals. So this was the idea that they came up with. And maybe how we are involved in this study is that, so the experiment, the idea is also from the NWO, or like they are the conductors of the experiment, but we have given them some consultation in terms of randomization, and also like how to make, for example, the conditions, the treatment comparable across the real panels and the shadow panels. So, but given that maybe it's also interesting for it saying we are impartial, independent researchers, but collaborate with NVO, we were lucky to do that. And then of course, then the question is like, okay, how we can also keep our impartiality, and how can also NVO trust us in our study, right? So to be able to kind of have an agreement on this, we have come up with pre-registration idea. I mean, it is now quite common now, but back then it was not that common. But this, I think, helped us and NVO to have kind of a mutual trust, basically. So in pre-registration, we have basically just talked about the design that NVO has, and how are we going to use this? What are the hypotheses that we want to have, and what are kind of the implications of this study would be? So, and you can all still kind of access this document clicking the link here or in the paper. So what is the idea of, first of all, maybe before thinking, oh, can we remove proposals? What is the idea of having proposals in review? So what are the assumed impact of it? We realize that funding agencies assume proposals have a substantial effect on decisions, but this is not really known. So the benefits are expected to be for the researchers. For example, the researchers who would like to create a proposal have to think quite, critically about their research line, and they have to come up with a rigorous research planning. So this helped them actually develop research ideas. And through this, multiple review processes, they also get valuable feedback from the reviewers. And having proposals in addition to CVs may also reduce reliance on prior accomplishments in funding decisions, prior accomplishments such as having a previous having a previous grant, for example. If you have a better proposal now, even if you don't have previous accomplishment, maybe if your proposal is strong enough, you still get the grant, right? So it kind of helps avoiding this massive effects. But the challenges, as I already explained a few slides before, it is time consuming for applicants and for the reviewers. So it's taxing on both the applicants and the reviewers. And again, is there really a substantial proposal effect? That is something we don't know. What we know from the previous studies is that there's very low reviewer agreement. So studies show only moderate to low consensus between different reviewers, reviewing one application. And there are also some studies kind of link proposal scores to, or this grant scores to research impact, like the later impact in science, but some find quite weak correlations between the studies that have been awarded grants and the impact that they have in later research life. And in all of these studies, there are also quite a bit of measurement issues. So the way they measure consensus or these kind of links could be flawed or overlook societal contributions, for example. But how do we kind of contribute to the literature? The first thing is that we don't really measure the quality of funding allocation through proposal review decisions. We kind of don't do this, but what we do is that we focus on reviewer behavior and we examine whether access to proposal influences reviewers' evaluations of grant applications. So we define that a proposal effect to exist if decisions differ when proposals are available versus when they are not. So if having read the proposal changes the reviewer evaluations, then we could talk about a proposal effect. That's how we kind of approach the situation. And our official hypothesis is that panelist evaluations agree more when both have access to the proposal text than when only one does. So we expect that having extra information in addition to CV would increase agreement. So that is also how does this hypothesis come from. And the setup of the experiment is such that NVO at the time had 182 applications, and these 182 applications were already evaluated in 8 regular NWO panels. But for the experiment, NWO also created shadow panels where they recruited also reviewers for these panels, but these are shadow panels, so regular panels are not aware of these shadow panels, and also the applicants. It's just the same kind of review process is imitated or repeated in these shadow panels. But these shadow panels have where the treatment is applied, so the half of basically the panels in the shadow panels were assigned to a condition where they would read the CV and the complete proposal, just like in regular panels, and the other half would have the CV, but only a summary of proposal, and this summary is just a 1-paragraph summary of the whole proposal, so it's very, very small, like brief information. And we name this as no proposal condition, and the rest as proposal condition. As you can see in the regular panel, there are no treatment actually, right? And so everyone who reviewed, or like every panelist who reviewed, who worked in these regular panels, were kind of in the proposal condition because they were receiving CV and a complete proposal. The difference is in these shadow panels, half of the panelists did not receive the complete proposals. So that's the difference. And maybe just a quick note, in creating this randomization within shadow panels, block randomization was used, and this is actually where we were involved. This randomization was conducted by us, but quite completely anonymously, so we don't know the panelists' names or anything. So that this randomization of the panelists to the conditions were done in each panel, because, oh, I forgot to mention, the experiment concerns the video competition, but only one domain. VD has like 4 domains for, life sciences, etc. But the experiment that NVO conducted back then concerns only the social science domain. And this social science domain has also multiple panels within them. For example, philosophy and religion studies are one panel, and economics another panel, etc. So, and for the rest of the presentation, I will refer to the 2 groups, which are PP groups and PN groups. And this PP group is basically proposal group, which means the reviewers coming from proposal conditions, one from the regular panel, one from the shadow panels. And if I talk about PN group, it will refer to the proposal, no proposal condition. Again, this will refer to 2 reviewers, one of them coming from regular panels and the other one coming from no proposal shadow panels. So what we do in the study is basically compare the agreements between PP and PN to each other. So first we check the agreement within this group, like PN and PP, and then we compare the agreement between these 2 things. And experimental setup. So NVO matched regular and shadow panelist applications based on the similarity of proposal content, panelist expertise, preferences and conflicts of interest. So they took into account many different things to have the perfect matches, and they have given the same kind of evaluation sheets. And so I kind of show a kind of picture of this, where both the shadow panelists and regular panelists have received the same kind of instructions. So the only thing that was the treatment is basically just having half of the shadow panelists not having the full proposal. And the final score consists of a weighted average of CV scores, proposal scores, and knowledge utilization scores. So basically, reviewers were asked to evaluate the applications on these three aspects, and the scoring was from 1 to 9, 1 being excellent and 9 from being bad, so not very good quality. This doesn't matter that much for us, the scoring scale, because we just look at the difference in evaluations, but just for your information. And our analytical strategy consists of two approaches to measure agreement. The first one is panelist agreement on rankings. We then check whether the panelist agreement on rankings in proposal group are significantly different from those in the no proposal group. And the same kind of comparison we do also for the panelist disagreement over scores. In just a second, I'm just going to show you how we do these kind of calculations, so bear with me now. But I just want to say we are then basically having two statistics, two measures, and then the idea is how do we kind of infer whether this statistic is statistically significantly different from zero. For that, we use non-parametric randomization tests. And the reason for this is, as you may have already realized when you look at this experimental setup, panelists were assigned to conditions, not applications. So this means, first of all, one application is evaluated in different conditions, but also one panelist can review many applications. So then the independence of the observations is basically violated. Therefore, we use this non-parametric randomization test. And what we do is generate a null distribution by shuffling condition labels within each shadow panel 1,000 times. So we are creating a null distribution where there is no difference between the null distribution where there's basically there's no treatment, like things are basically just randomly assigned. And then we see for each shuffle, we calculate the measure, these two measures, and then compute the p-value as the fraction of cases where it exceeded its value in the non-permitted data. I'm gonna again go back to this when I show you some results. So this is a bit in theory, but so we basically create a null distribution of no difference between the agreement between the two groups, and then we check our own measurement against this distribution to see whether our measurement comes from this null distribution or not. So how does it look like panelist agreement on rankings, for example? I just wanted to have one example. For example, when we create a no proposal group, that's how we approach the data. So we have data from shadow panels and regular panels. Let's say for this shadow panels, this is from one panel, and there are 4 panelists and 6 applications. And you can see for each application, there are at least 2 reviewer scores. Like, so one application has been reviewed by 2 panelists. And the scores, you can see it's sometimes minus, sometimes plus, because these are standardized scores. These are standardized within panelists. So you can see for panelist 1 proposal column, application 1 received minus 1.1, application 2 received 0.6. This means application 1 was 1.1 standard deviation less than the average of the score that this panelist 1 gave in their reviews, while application 2 scored 0.6 deviations more from the average of the panelist 1 mean reviews. So we use these scores also because NWO use standardized scores in making these decisions. So we kind of also imitate what they do. And here we see for shadow panels, we have some applications only in proposal conditions. This application 1, 2, 3, for example, they receive 2 scores from panels 1 and 2 in proposal condition, while application 4, 5, and 6 receive some scores from the no proposal, or both of their scores come from no proposal panelists. For example, application 5 is the 1 and application 6 also the one where one of the scores come from the proposal and the other one comes from no proposal condition. And in regular panels, as you see, the only condition is proposal condition, so all reviews are just made in proposal condition. Okay, sorry. So what we do is that to just check all the evaluations we receive from no proposal to create a first a no proposal group. So we only kind of highlight here the no proposal reviews of the application for 5 and 6. And this is the starting point. So first we decide on, okay, what are the groups in shadow panels? And based on these groups, we then check whether we could find matching reviews for those applications in regular panels. So for application 4 and 5, again, I said we have these scores from the no proposal, and for regular panels, we have double scores, of course, for each of them because everything is in the proposal condition. So how does it look like if I kind of zoom in on in these small now subgroups? So when we want to check the rankings, what is important to find 2 applications that are reviewed by the same panelist, because then we can talk about a ranking, right? If panelist 3, for example, here reviewed application 4 and 6, then we can talk about whether application 4 is ranked higher than application 6 according to panelist 3. So we are interested in this kind of pairs. So the first pair we could find in this small group is application 4 and 6, and it's reviewed by panelist 3. And then we go check whether such a pair exists in regular panels, such a pair that is basically application 4 and 6 reviewed by the same panelist. Oh, sorry for the animation. And the we see that the regular panels, panelist A, luckily also review application 4 and 6. So what we can do is then we can really check the rankings. For example, for the shadow panels, we see that application 4 has been ranked higher than application 6 by panelist 3. And in the regular panels, application 4 has also been ranked higher than application 6. Then we check these rankings and say, because both are ranked the same way, in both of the rankings, application 4 was assessed to be better, we say this is a concordant pair. So it's an agreement in the rankings. And we do the same for another pair we can find, application 4 and 5. Luckily, in regular panels, panel C reviewed both of these applications, so we can use it as a kind of a measure again. And in this case, the panelist 4 reviewed application 4 and assessed that it's less than application 5. And for panelist C, this was other way around, so this is a discordant pair. Here also, again, important to realize, for example, application 5 and 6 are not evaluated in our evaluation because they are not ranked by the same panelist in shadow panels, even if they are evaluated by the same panelists be in regular panels, because this can't be compared. So this is one way of checking the agreement. And you can also see, just checking rankings also help with the kind of fluctuations in the scores, like how people score, right, in terms of like, percentages. So this is a kind of a alternative way of checking agreement. And what we do then, we just look at out of all these comparisons that we make, we look at in how many of those matches that there was a concordant pair. And we do this for also a PP group, proposal group. Again, this group consists of reviewers from the regular panel and shadow panel, both are in proposal condition. And what we find is that percentage of concordant pairs in the PN group is 55% too, while in the PP group, this is 3.7 percentage point higher, 58.9. This is maybe already important to emphasize what does it mean to have 55.2 percentage concordant pairs in one of the groups. Just think about this measure, if everything was random, like basically agreement between 2 people would be 50%, right? It's just by chance, just like flipping a coin, whether they agree or not. Each time if you do this, you would get 50%. And if there would be perfect agreement, if they would always say, yeah, application A is better than B and C is better than B, etc., then it would be 100%. So what we see, these numbers are quite close to the random situation, right? I mean, it is better than random situation. This is also there. It's higher than random, but it is close to the random agreement than the perfect agreement. So this is one of our findings, which I will also repeat at the end. But this is just, again, these are numbers. What if we do some kind of non-parametric test to see whether this difference of 3.7 is statistically significantly different from 0? We also get the result that it is not. So here on this figure, the observed 3.7, this difference is shown by the blue vertical line, and these bars, the white bars behind this, it shows a distribution of the differences we obtain from reshuffling the condition labels. So basically just randomly assigning panelist conditions, just shuffling basically this, which means we are kind of creating a random distribution. And you can also imagine if it was randomly distributed, the difference should be close to 0, right? And this is the distribution from this data. And what we see is that the p-value is not significant, meaning there are only, like, this 3.7 is not such an extreme value to be able to say that this does not coming from null distribution and this is a real observed difference. So unfortunately, it is basically just in the large body of the null distribution. So from this part of measure, we don't find any evidence for our hypothesis. And now the disagreement over scores. So instead of looking at rankings, we just check the scores. And this is a bit more straightforward. Again, for the subgroup that I have decided in the beginning of the presentation, I look at the application 4, 5, and 6 for the shadow panels, and I then check whether there are matching reviewers for these applications from the regular panels. And now I use basically all possible scores there, because in the previous ranking one, I was not able to compare application 5 and 6, for example, but now I'm not comparing the applications against each other, but within the applications, I just look at the reviewer agreement. So for application 4, we have 2 reviews, 2 scores from the shadow panels and 2 from the regular panels. This gives us 4 possible comparisons. So for the first, what I do is I just check the score panelist 3, the first score of application 4 received, and I check the distance between this and the panelist A. And then I do this comparison between panelist 3 scores and the panelist C, because now basically I'm just checking the distance between shadow panel evaluations and regular panel evaluations one by one. So I get 4 different type of distances, and because it's distance, by the way, I just take the absolute difference between the two. And what I do is then basically also sum them up and divide by the number of calculations that I have carried out and get a mean disagreement 1.2. For example, for this 3, for this application 4, I get 1.2 as the mean disagreement. But I'm showing it here only for application 4, but when I do actually mean disagreement, I do for all the applications. So I would also do this for application 5 and 6. But I hope this gives you an idea how we have done these calculations of the distance between the scores of panelists from the shadow and regular panels. And what do we find is that it's not percent here, it's the mean disagreement in the PN group is 0.89, while the mean disagreement in the PP group is 0.93. Again, it seems that the disagreement in PP group, disagreement in the PP group seems to be larger, and in the agreement, it was the other way around. And this difference is quite small, 0.04. And when I do again some kind of randomization test, it's just actually the same type of test. We see that this is not a significant difference. So it's basically statistically 0. This is what it says. We've done some sensitivity checks, like we checked all these measures, also separately for CV scores, proposal scores, and knowledge utilization scores. Because at the end, it is the overall score that matter most for funding decisions. But of course, it's interesting to see also whether this overall score results would also hold for constituent scores, and it did. And we also do not find any systematic difference between the quality of assessment between shadow and regular panels. And we evaluate this by just checking whether there's a relationship between the disagreement and overall scores and the number of reviewers. We do this because regular panels, like the shadow panelists, reviewed more applications per person. Yeah, I have already shown that there were difference in the number of panelists per panels. So we don't find any, any deviating results from these kind of sensitivity checks. I also would like to mention in the pre-registration, we had also extra hypotheses that we test, and they were more than regarding the effect of, for example, CVs, whether some non-merit or merit-related things in the series gain more prominence, for example, in this shadow no proposal condition, and we don't find any evidence for that neither. So we do, extra checks, but for the actually just I think I don't want to go beyond the time that I'm given. So I mean, I don't show the results, but these are also available. So the key findings we have would be basically first the role of chance, that pure chance plays a major role in application selection due to the considerable disagreement among panelists. In our data, to put it into kind of simple terms, 40% of the time, one panelist ranks application A above B, while another ranks B above A. So this level of disagreement is only moderately better than a coin flip. 50% would be the coin flip disagreement. So this is very important, but having said this, from the previous studies also, as I said already, this is not an unusual finding. So this kind of highlights the importance of the previous findings on this, that the chance plays a major role in reviews. And the impact of proposal quality, though, we don't really see that the impact, like the quality of the proposals, the assessment changes noticeably. So because panelists who did not read the proposal showed no less agreement on application quality compared to those who did. So it did not really have an effect, at least the effect that we have defined at the very beginning that we didn't find. And this also means that the agreement among panelists is primarily based on the applicant's CV, right? If the proposals don't do much effect, then it must be that the CVs are the primary things that applicants are being assessed on. So these are our key findings, but I do think there are many discussion points, and I would like to leave the floor to you and to your questions, and look forward to a fruitful discussion.